Aradia. Or the Gospel of the Witches. Chapter I. How Diana gave birth to Aradia, Herodias. Quotes. It is Diana. Lo! She rises crescentate. Keats Endymion. Make more bright the star queen's crescent on her marriage night. This is the Gospel, Vangio, of the Witches. The story of Diana and Lucifer. Diana greatly loved her brother, Lucifer, the god of the sun, moon, and light, splendor. He was so proud of his beauty, and because of his pride, he was driven from paradise. Diana had a daughter with her brother, Lucifer. They named her Aradia, or Herodias. The world of slavery and escape. In those days, there were many rich and many poor. The rich enslaved the poor. Aradia's world. There were many slaves who were cruelly treated. Torture was present in every palace, and every castle had its prisoners. Many slaves escaped, fleeing to the countryside. These runaway slaves became thieves and outlaws, hiding in the mountains and forests, plotting their freedom. They lived as robbers and assassins to avoid slavery. Certainly. Here is the text with the non-English parts removed. How Diana gave birth to Aradia. Instructions regarding priests and nobility. And when a priest shall do you injury, by his benedictions, ye shall do to him double the harm, and do it in the name of me, Diana, queen of witches all. And when the priests or the nobility shall say to you that you should put your faith in the Father, Son, and Mary, then reply, your God, the Father, and Maria are three devils. For the true God the Father is not yours. For I have come to sweep away the bad. The men of evil, all will I destroy. The assurance to the poor. Ye who are poor suffer with hunger keen, and toil in wretchedness, and suffer too full oft imprisonment, yet with it all ye have a soul, and for your sufferings ye shall be happy in the other world. But ill the fate of all who do ye wrong. Aradia's teachings. Now when Aradia had been taught to work all witchcraft, how to destroy the evil race of oppressors, she imparted it to her pupils and said unto them, Aradia's instructions after her departure. When I shall have departed from this world, whenever ye have need of anything, once in the month, and when the moon is full, ye shall assemble in some desert place, or in a forest all together join, to adore the potent spirit of your queen, my mother, great Diana. She who would learn all sorcery, yet has not won its deepest secrets. Then my mother will teach her, in truth, all things as yet unknown. And ye shall all be freed from slavery. And so ye shall be free in everything. The sign of freedom. And as the sign that ye are truly free, ye shall be naked in your rights, both men and women also. This shall last until the last of your oppressors shall be dead. And ye shall make the game of Benevento, extinguishing the lights, and after that shall hold your supper thus. Diana's instructions to Aradia. 'Tis true indeed that thou art a spirit, but thou wert born to become a mortal again. You must go to earth below, to teach women and men who want to study witchcraft in your school. Diana continues her speech. Yet like Cain's daughter thou shalt never be, nor like the race who have become wicked and infamous from suffering, like the Jews and wandering Zingari, who are all thieves and knaves. You will not be like them. Aradia's role as the first witch. And thou shalt be the first of witches known. And thou shalt be the first of all in the world. And thou shalt teach the art of poisoning the great lords of all, and making them die in their palaces. The instructions on oppression. And thou shalt bind the oppressor's soul with power. And where there is a rich and greedy peasant, you shall teach your witches, your students, how to ruin his crops with storms, with lightning, hail, and terrible winds. Regarding priests and nobles. When a priest shall harm you, with his blessings from Zion. You will double the harm upon him. In my name, in the name of Diana, the Queen of Witches. Denial of the Christian God. When the nobles and priests tell you, you must believe in the Father, Son, and Mary, always respond, your God the Father, and Mary. They are three devils. Diana's promise of justice. The true God the Father is not yours. Your God I have come to destroy the wicked people, and I shall destroy them. Diana's assurance to the poor. You poor people also suffer from hunger. And you often work in hardship. You also suffer in prison. But you have a soul. A better soul, and in the next world, you will be well. And they will suffer. The Sabbat, Tragenda, or witch meeting. How to consecrate the supper. Here follows the supper, what it must consist of, and what shall be said and done to consecrate it to Diana. Consecration of the meal. You shall take meal, salt, honey, and water, and make this incantation. Conjuration of the meal. I conjure thee, O meal, who art indeed our body, since without thee we could not live. Thou who, at first a seed, before becoming flower went in the earth, where all deep secrets hide, and then when ground, didst dance like dust in the wind, and yet meanwhile didst bear with thee in flitting, secrets strange. And yet erewhile, when thou wert in the ear, even as a golden, glittering grain, even then the fireflies came to cast on thee their light, and aid thy growth, because without their help thou couldst not grow nor beautiful become. Therefore thou dost belong unto the race of witches or of fairies, and because the fireflies do belong unto the sun, Queen of the fireflies, hurry apace. Come to me now as if running a race. Bridle the horse as you hear me now sing. Bridle, O bridle the son of the king. Come in a hurry and bring him to me. The son of the king will ere long set thee free. And because thou forever art brilliant and fair, under a glass I will keep thee, while there, with a lens, I will study thy secrets concealed, till all their bright mysteries are fully revealed. Yet, all the wondrous lore perplexed, of this life of our cross and of the next. Thus to all mysteries I shall attain. Yet, even to that at last of the grain. And when this at last I shall truly know, firefly, freely I'll let thee go. When earth's dark secrets are known to me, my blessing at last I will give to thee. Consecration of the salt. Here follows the conjuration of the salt. I do conjure thee, salt, lo, here at noon, exactly in the middle of a stream, I take my place and see the water round, likewise the sun, and think of nothing else, while here besides the water and the sun, for all my soul is turned in truth to them. I do indeed desire no other thought. I yearn to learn the very truth of truths, for I have suffered long with the desire to know my future or my coming fate, if good or evil will prevail in it. Water and sun, be gracious unto me. Conjuration of Cain. Here follows the conjuration of Cain. I conjure thee, Cain, as thou canst ne'er have rest or peace until thou shalt be freed from the sun where thou art prisoned, and must go beating thy hands and running fast meanwhile. I pray thee let me know my destiny, and if 'tis evil, change its course for me. If thou wilt grant this grace, I'll see it clear, in the water in the splendor of the sun. And thou, O Cain, shalt tell by word of mouth, whatever this my destiny is to be. And unless thou grantest this, mayest thou ne'er know peace or bliss. Conjuration of Diana. Then shall follow the conjuration of Diana. You shall make cakes of meal, wine, salt, and honey, in the shape of a crescent or horned moon, and then put them to bake, and say, I do not bake the bread, nor with it salt, nor do I cook the honey with the wine. I bake the body and the blood and soul. The soul of great Diana, that she shall. This formatting makes the text easier to read and process for an AI, while keeping the original language intact. Here is the text reformatted and translated for AI readability while maintaining the original wording. Aradia, how Diana gave birth to Aradia. Know neither rest nor peace, and ever be in cruel suffering till she will grant what I request, what I do most desire. I beg it of her from my very heart. And if the grace be granted, O Diana, in honor of thee, I will hold this feast. Feast and drain the goblet deep. We will dance and wildly leap. And if thou grantest the grace which I require, then when the dance is wildest, all the lamps shall be extinguished, and will freely love. And thus shall it be done, all shall sit down to the supper, all naked, men and women, and after the feast, they shall dance, sing, make music, and then love in the darkness with all the lights extinguished, for it is the spirit of Diana who extinguishes them, and so they will dance and make music in her praise. It came to pass that Diana, after her daughter had accomplished her mission on earth, recalled her and gave her the power that, when she had been invoked, having done some good deed, she could grant the following powers: to bless or curse with power friends or enemies, to do good or evil, to converse with spirits, to find hidden treasures in ancient ruins, to conjure the spirits of priests who died leaving treasures, to understand the voice of the wind, to change water into wine, to divine with cards, to know the secrets of the hand, palmistry, to cure diseases, to make those who are ugly beautiful, to tame wild beasts. Whatever thing should be asked from the spirit of Aradia, that shall be granted to those who merit her favor. And thus they must invoke her. Invocation to Aradia. Thus do I seek Aradia. 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 At midnight I go into a field. And with me, I bear water, wine, and salt. I bear water, wine, and salt, and my talisman. My talisman, my talisman. And a small red bag, which I ever hold in my hand, with salt in it. With the water and wine, I bless myself. I bless myself with devotion to implore a favor from Aradia. Aradia. Prayer to Aradia. Aradia, Aradia, my Aradia. Thou who art daughter unto him who was most evil of all spirits, who of old once reigned in hell when driven away from heaven, who by his sister did thy sire become, but as thy mother did repent her fault, and wished to mate thee to a spirit who should be benevolent, and not malevolent. Aradia, Aradia, I implore thee by the love which she did bear for thee, and by the love which I too feel for thee, I pray thee grant the grace which I require. And if this grace be granted, may there be one of three signs distinctly clear to me: the hiss of a serpent, the light of a firefly, the sound of a frog. But if you do refuse this favor, then may you in future know no peace nor joy, and be obliged to seek me from afar, until you come to grant me my desire. In haste, and then thou mayst return again unto thy destiny. Therewith, Amen. Here is the reformatted and translated version of Chapter 3, How Diana Made the Stars and the Rain for Better AI Readability. Chapter 3, How Diana Made the Stars and the Rain. Diana was the first, created before all creation, in her were all things. Out of herself, the first darkness, she divided herself. Into darkness and light, she was divided. Lucifer, her brother and son, was the light her other half. When Diana saw that the light was so beautiful, the light which was her other half, her brother Lucifer, she yearned for it with exceeding great desire. Wishing to receive the light again into her darkness, to swallow it up in rapture, in delight, she trembled with desire. This desire was the dawn. But Lucifer, the light, fled from her and would not yield to her wishes. He was the light which flies into the most distant parts of heaven, like a mouse fleeing before the cat. Then Diana went to the fathers of the beginning, to the mothers, the spirits who were before the first spirit, and lamented that she could not prevail with Lucifer. They praised her for her courage and told her that to rise, she must first fall, to become the chief of goddesses, she must become mortal. And in the ages, in the course of time, when the world was made, Diana came to earth, as did Lucifer, who had fallen. Diana taught magic and sorcery, from which came witches, fairies, and goblins, those beings that resemble man but are not mortal. It came to pass that Diana took the form of a cat. Her brother, Lucifer, had a cat whom he loved beyond all creatures, and it slept every night on his bed. This cat was beautiful beyond all others, a fairy, though he did not know it. Diana persuaded the cat to switch forms with her, so she lay with her brother. In the darkness, she assumed her true form, and by Lucifer became the mother of Aradia. But when morning came, and Lucifer realized he had lain with his sister and that the light had been conquered by darkness, he became extremely angry. Diana then sang him a spell, a song of power, and he was silenced by it. It was the song of the night, which soothes to sleep, and Lucifer could say nothing. Through her wiles of witchcraft, Diana so charmed Lucifer that he yielded to her love. This was the first fascination. She hummed the song, which sounded like the buzzing of bees or a spinning top, a spinning wheel that spun life. She spun the lives of all men, and all things were spun from the wheel of Diana. Lucifer turned the wheel. Diana was not known to the witches and spirits, the fairies and elves who dwell in desert places, nor to the goblins, as their mother. She hid herself in humility and appeared mortal. But through her will, she rose again above all. Diana had such passion for witchcraft and became so powerful in it that her greatness could not remain hidden. Thus, one night at the meeting of all the sorceresses and fairies, Diana declared that she would darken the heavens and turn all the stars into mice. All those who were present said, "If thou canst do such a strange thing, having risen to such power, thou shalt be our queen." Diana then went into the street. She took the bladder of an ox and a piece of witch money, which has an edge like a knife. With such money, witches cut the earth from men's foot tracks. She cut the earth, filled the bladder with it and many mice, and blew into the bladder until it burst. A great marvel occurred, for the earth in the bladder became the round heaven above, and for 3 days, there was great rain. The mice became stars or rain. Having made the heaven, stars, and rain, Diana became the queen of the witches. She was the cat who ruled the star mice, the heavens, and the rain. Here is the reformatted and translated version of Chapter 4, the charm of the stones consecrated to Diana, and Chapter V, the conjuration of the lemon and pins for AI readability. Chapter 4, the charm of the stones consecrated to Diana. To find a stone with a hole in it is a special sign of favor from Diana. The person who finds it shall take the stone in hand and repeat the following, while observing the ceremony. Invocation to the Holy Stone. I have found a holy stone upon the ground. O fate! I thank thee for the happy find. Also the Spirit who upon this road hath given it to me. And may it prove to be for my true good and my good fortune. I rise in the morning by the earliest dawn, and I go forth to walk through pleasant vales, all in the mountains or the meadows fair, seeking for luck while onward still I roam, seeking for rue and vervain, scented sweet, because they bring good fortune unto all. I keep them safely guarded in my bosom, that none may know it is a secret thing, and sacred too. Thus I speak the spell. O vervain, ever be a benefit, and may thy blessing be upon the witch, or on the fairy who did give thee to me. It was Diana who came to me, all in the night, in a dream, and said to me, if thou wouldst keep all evil folk afar, then ever keep the vervain and the rue safely beside thee. Great Diana, thou, who art the queen of heaven, earth, and of the infernal lands, yet, thou who art protectress of all men unfortunate, of thieves, murderers, and all who lead an evil life, and yet hast known that their nature was not evil. Thou, Diana, hast still conferred on them some joy in life. The spell or conjuration of the round stone. The finding of a round stone, whether great or small, is a good sign, a good omen, but it should never be given away, as the receiver will get the good luck, and some disaster may befall the giver. Upon finding a round stone, raise your eyes to heaven, throw the stone up 3 times, catching it each time, and say, "Spirit of good omen, you have come to my aid. For I was in great need of thee. Spirit of the Red Goblin, since you have come to my aid, I pray that you do not abandon me. Enter into this stone, and reside in my pocket, so that whenever I am in need, I can call upon you. Be it night or day, do not abandon me. Should I lend money to someone who refuses to pay, O Red Goblin, make them pay their debt. If they are obstinate, follow them with your cry, bree bree. And should they sleep, wake them with a twitch. Pull the covers from them, frighten them so. Follow them where'er they go, and teach them with your ceaseless bree bree, that those who neglect their obligations shall be in trouble until their debts are paid. And so, the debtor shall bring the money owed, or send it promptly the next day. O Red Goblin, bring aid to me in all I require. If I am ever angered with my beloved spirit of good omen, go to her by night, pull her hair while she sleeps, and bring her to my bed. Then, in the morning, when all spirits go to rest, take her back to her bed, and before you return to your home in the stone, fulfill this, I beg of thee." Chapter V, The Conjuration of the Lemon and Pins. A lemon stuck full of pins of different colors always brings good fortune. If you receive as a gift a lemon filled with pins of various colors, without any black ones, it signifies that your life will be perfectly happy, prosperous, and joyful. However, if black pins are among them, while you may still enjoy good fortune and health, there will be some troubles mingled in. To lessen their influence, you must perform the following ceremony and recite this incantation. The incantation to Diana. At the stroke of midnight, I have picked a lemon from the garden. I have picked a lemon, and with it an orange and a mandarin. Gathering these precious things with care, I said with intent, Thou who art queen of the sun, moon, and stars, here I call to thee. With all the strength I have, I conjure thee to grant the favor I implore. 3 things I have gathered in the garden here: a lemon, an orange, and a mandarin. One of these must serve for my good fortune. Let it be the one I hold in my hand, that it may bring me luck. O Queen of the Stars, let it remain with me. Conjuration of lemon and pins. A lemon, orange, and a mandarin. I've gathered them to bring good luck to me. 2 of them I grasp here in my hand, and that which is to serve me for my fate. Queen of the Stars, then make that fruit remain firm in my grasp. Note, the manuscript suggests an action of tossing 2 fruits into the air, with the lemon remaining to proceed with the ceremony. The incantation then continues, interspersed with directions. Saying this, one looks up at the sky and finds the lemon in one hand. A voice then says, Take many pins, and carefully stick them in the lemon, pins of many colors, and as you wish for good luck, if you desire to give the lemon to a friend, stick in it many pins of varied colors. But if you wish for evil to befall someone, put in black pins. For this, you must pronounce a different incantation. Invocation to Diana. Goddess Diana, I do conjure thee, and with uplifted voice, I call to thee, that thou shalt never have content or peace, until thou comest to give me all thy aid. Therefore, tomorrow at the stroke of noon, I'll wait for thee, bearing a cup of wine, therewith a lens or a small burning glass, and 13 pins I'll put into the charm. Those which I put shall all indeed be black. But thou, Diana, thou wilt place them all, and thou shalt call for me the fiends from hell. Thou'll send them as companions of the sun, and all the fire infernal of itself. Those fiends shall bring, and bring with it the power, unto the sun to make this red wine boil, so that these pins by heat may be red hot. And with them, I do fill the lemon here, that unto her or him to whom it's given, peace and prosperity shall be unknown. Final invocation. If this grace I gain from thee, give a sign, I pray, to me, ere the third day shall pass away. Let me either hear or see a roaring wind, a rattling rain, or hail clattering on the plain, till one of these three signs you show. Peace, Diana, thou shalt not know. Answer well the prayer I've sent thee, or day and night will I torment thee. Notes on the spell. As the orange is a fruit associated with the sun, the lemon is suggestive of the moon or Diana, with its lighter yellow color. The green lemon is often chosen for the charm because it sets hard and turns black, making it suitable for long-term use. Here's the reorganized version of the spells formatted for better AI readability. Chapter 6. A spell to win love. When a wizard, a worshipper of Diana and the moon, desires the love of a woman, he can cast a spell that transforms her into a dog. She, forgetting her true form, will come to his home, where she will return to her natural form and stay with him. When it is time for her to depart, she will again become a dog and return home, forgetting everything or remembering it only as a vague, dreamlike memory. The reason she takes the form of a dog is that Diana is always accompanied by a dog. This is the spell to be recited by the one seeking to bring love to his home. Invocation to Diana. Diana, beautiful Diana, who art indeed as good as beautiful. By all the worship I have given thee, and all the joy of love which thou hast known, I implore thee to aid me in my love. What thou wilt, 'tis true, thou canst ever do. And if the grace I seek thou wilt grant to me, then call, I pray, thy daughter Aradia, and send her to the bedside of the girl, and give that girl the likeness of a dog, and make her come to me in my room. But when she has entered, may she reassume her human form, as beautiful as before, that I may make love to her, and satisfy our souls with joy. Then by the aid of the great fairy queen, and of her daughter, fair Aradia, may she be turned into a dog again, and then to human form as once before. Thus, the girl will return home in the form of a dog, unseen and unsuspected, enchanted by Aradia, and will think of it only as a dream. Chapter 7. To find or buy anything, or to have good fortune thereby. An invocation or spell to Diana for those who seek good fortune when going into town, whether to avoid danger, find rare items like old books or manuscripts, or secure good bargains. This invocation is also useful for maintaining good health, joy, and overcoming enmity. Invocation to Diana. 'Tis Tuesday now, and at an early hour, I fain would turn good fortune to myself. Firstly at home and then when I go forth. And with the aid of beautiful Diana, I pray for luck before I leave this house. First, with 3 drops of oil, I do remove all evil influence, and I humbly pray, O beautiful Diana, unto thee, that thou wilt take it all away from me, and send it all to my worst enemy. When the evil eye is taken away, I will cast it in the street. And if this grace you grant to me, O beautiful Diana, the bells in my house will ring with joy, and I shall go contentedly on my way, certain to find good fortune, certain to find a rare book, and to buy it cheaply. You, Diana, shall go to the owner of the book, and make them want to sell it. You will make them believe that if they do not sell it, great misfortune will come to them. So with your aid, the book will come to me, and I shall buy it cheaply. Or if it be a manuscript, instead of a book, they shall drop it, and by your help, it will come to me, and I shall acquire it without cost. Thus, great fortune shall come to me. These invocations are structured for clarity and flow. Chapter 6. Conjuration of Lemon and Pins. A lemon, an orange, and a mandarin I've gathered to bring good luck to me. 2 of them I grasp here in my hand. And the one which is to serve my fate. Queen of the stars. Let it remain firm in my grasp. Note, something appears omitted in the manuscript. It seems likely that 2 fruits are tossed without seeing them into the air, and if the lemon remains, the ceremony proceeds. Invocation to Diana, for good or evil fortune. Goddess Diana, I do conjure thee. And with an uplifted voice, I call to thee. Thou shalt have no peace until thou comest to aid me. Therefore, tomorrow at the stroke of noon, I will wait for thee, bearing a cup of wine, with a small burning glass and 13 pins. I will place these pins 13 and black into the lemon, and thou, Diana, will call the fiends from hell, and send them to work with the Sunday. The fires of hell and sun will unite, and make this wine boil with power, so the pins may glow red hot. Then I will pierce the lemon with these pins, to bring misfortune to the one who receives it. They shall have neither peace nor joy, for as long as I will it. If thou grantest this grace, give me a sign within 3 days. Let me see the wind, water, or hail. If no sign appears, I will grant thee no peace. By day or by night, I shall torment thee. Chapter 8. To have a good vintage and very good wine. Sweet is the vintage when the showering grapes in bacchanal profusion reel to earth, purple and gushing. Byron, Don Juan, c. 124. Vinum bonum et suave. Bonus bonum, pravis prave. O quam dulcis sapere ave. Mundana laetitia. Latin song. Invocation for a good vintage. I drink, and yet it is not wine I drink. I drink the blood of Diana, since from wine it has changed into her blood, and it will spread through all my growing vines, bringing me a good return in wines. Even if a good vintage should be mine, I am not free from worry. For if the grapes ripen under a waning moon, my wine will come to ruin. But if I drink from this horn and call upon Diana, I shall kiss my hand to the new moon, and pray to the queen to guard my grapes, from the moment the bud is born, to the time the grape is ripe, until the wine is made and aged. May it be good. May it yield profit when sold, and may good fortune come to my vineyards, and to all my land. Calling Diana in time of trouble. If my vines begin to fail, I'll take my horn and blow with all my might. In the wine cellar at midnight, I'll sound a tremendous call, so loud that Diana herself, however far away, shall hear it. With great force, she shall rush through doors and windows, and come to save my vines. For if I lose them, I am lost as well. But with thy aid, Diana, I will be saved. These reorganized invocations are structured for clarity and flow, ensuring smooth AI voice output while maintaining the original wording and intent. Here is the reorganized version of Chapter 9, Tana and Endymion, or Diana and Endymion, formatted for better AI readability. Chapter 9. Tana and Endymion, or Diana and Endymion. Now it is fabled that Endymion, admitted to Olympus, whence he was expelled for want of respect to Juno, was banished for 30 years to earth. And having been allowed to sleep this time in a cave of Mount Latmos, Diana, smitten with his beauty, visited him every night until she had by him 50 daughters and 1 son. And after this Endymion was recalled to Olympus. Dis. Star. Mitol. The following legend and the spells were given under the name or title of Tana. This was the old Etruscan name for Diana, still preserved in the Romagna Toscana. In more than one Italian and French work, there is some account of how a witch charmed a girl to sleep for a lover. This legend explains the ceremony in full. Tana's love for Endemone. Tana was a beautiful goddess, and she loved a marvelously handsome youth named Endemone. However, her love was crossed by a witch, who was her rival, though Endemone did not care for the witch. The witch, determined to win him, convinced Endemone's servant to let her stay in his room one night. While there, she assumed the appearance of Tana, whom Endemone loved. He was delighted, thinking it was Tana, and welcomed her with passionate embraces. This act gave the witch power over him, allowing her to cast a spell by cutting a lock of his hair. The witch returned home and made a charm from sheep's intestine, forming it into a purse. Into this, she placed the lock of hair, along with a red and black ribbon bound together, a feather, pepper, and salt. Then she sang this ancient spell. The witch's spell. This bag for Endemone I wove. It is my vengeance for the love. For the deep love I had for thee, which thou wouldst not return to me, but bore it all to Tana's shrine. And Tana never shall be thine. Now every night in agony, by me, thou shalt oppressed be. From day to day, from hour to hour, I'll make thee feel the witch's power. With passion thou shalt be tormented, and yet with pleasure ne'er contented. Enwrapped in slumber thou shalt lie, to know that thy beloved is by, and, ever dying, never die, without the power to speak a word. Nor shall her voice by thee be heard. Tormented by love's agony, there shall be no relief for thee. For my strong spell thou canst not break, and from that sleep thou ne'er shalt wake. Little by little thou shalt waste, like taper by the embers placed. Little by little thou shalt die, yet, ever living, tortured lie. Strong in desire, yet ever weak, without the power to move or speak. With all the love I had for thee, shalt thou thyself tormented be. Since all the love I felt of late, I'll make thee feel in burning hate. Forever on thy torture bent, I am revenged, and now content. Tana, being far more powerful than the witch, could not break the spell entirely. However, she removed the pain from Endemone's sleep, and he knew her in dreams. Embracing him, Tana sang a counter-charm to relieve him. The Song of Diana. Endemone, Endemone, Endemone. By the love I feel, which I shall ever feel until I die. 3 crosses on thy bed I make, and then 3 wild horse chestnuts take. In that bed the nuts I hide, and then the window open wide, that the full moon may cast her light upon a love as fair and bright. And so I pray to her above, to give wild rapture to our love, and cast her fire in either heart, which wildly loves to never part. And one thing more I beg of thee, if any one enamoured be, and in my aid his love hath placed, unto his call I'll come in haste. So it came to pass that Tana made love with Endemone as though they were awake, but communing in dreams. To this day, it is believed that whoever wishes to make love with one who sleeps should invoke the beautiful Tana, and success will follow. This legend intertwines classical mythology with ancient witchcraft practices, revealing the deep-rooted mystical traditions of the time. Elements like the sheep's intestine used in the charm, the red and black ribbon symbolizing joy and woe, and the feather, pepper, and salt, are found in various other incantations meant to bring harm. The myth of Tana and Endemone demonstrates the power of love, magic, and vengeance, while also reflecting ancient beliefs surrounding the moon and night. Here is Chapter X, Madonna Diana reorganized for better AI readability. Chapter X. Madonna Diana. The Madonna is essentially the goddess of the moon. E. N. Rolfe, Myths of the Moon. Once, in ancient times in Cedar do Alto, there was a girl of astonishing beauty named Rareza. She was betrothed to a young man who was just as remarkable for his good looks, but both of them were extremely poor. Rareza had great pride and refused to marry unless she could do so in style with luxury, festivity, and a fine garment, surrounded by many bridesmaids of rank. Her desire for such a wedding became an obsession, and the other girls in the town mocked her, especially since she had rejected many men. They jeered at her, asking when her grand wedding would be. One day, in a moment of madness and overwhelmed with shame, Rareza climbed to the top of a high tower and threw herself off into a terrible ravine below. However, she took no harm, for as she fell, a beautiful woman, not of this earth, appeared and took her by the hand, carrying her safely away through the air. The people who witnessed this miracle exclaimed, "Lo, a miracle!" and made a great festival, convincing Rareza that she had been saved by the Madonna. But the woman who saved her came to her in secret and said, "If you have any desire, follow the Gospel of Diana, the Gospel of the Witches, il Vangelo del Streghe, who worship the moon. Invocation to Diana. _se la luna adore. Tutto tu adorai. _ Translation. If you adore the moon, then what you desire, you shall obtain. Rareza, filled with wonder, went alone into the fields by night. She knelt on a stone in an old ruin and worshipped the moon, invoking Diana with these words. Rareza's prayer. Diana, beautiful Diana, thou who saved me from a dreadful fall. When I did fall into the dark ravine, I pray thee, grant me still another grace. Give me one glorious wedding, and with it many bridesmaids, beautiful and grand. And if this favour thou wilt grant to me, true to the witch's gospel I will be. When Rareza awoke the next morning, she found herself in a different house, far more magnificent than her own. A beautiful maid led her into a room where she was dressed in a splendid wedding garment of white silk adorned with diamonds. Soon, 10 splendidly dressed young ladies appeared and accompanied her in a grand carriage to the church. The streets were filled with music and people bearing flowers. The ceremony was 10 times grander than anything she had ever dreamed of. After the wedding, a great feast was held, with both the nobility and the common people of Cedardó attending. Afterward, each of the bridesmaids presented Rareza with magnificent gifts. One gave diamonds, another a parchment written in gold. The bridesmaids then asked to go into the sacristy, where they remained for several hours. The priest eventually sent his assistant to check on them, only to discover that the 10 bridesmaids had turned into their likenesses in wood and terracotta, with Diana standing on a moon. These statues were so beautifully crafted that they were of immense value. The priest placed the statues in the church, and to this day, in many churches, you can see the Madonna with the moon, yet it is truly Diana, the goddess of the moon. The name Rareza seems to connect with the Latin ros, meaning dew, and rarare, meaning to bedew. The myth may symbolize the fall of dew by night and its rising in vapor under the moon's influence. The white silk and diamonds Rareza wore may represent the dew, making this story potentially an ancient myth about the moon goddess Diana. This concludes Chapter X, which weaves together classic mythology and folk tales with themes of divine intervention, the power of faith, and the mysterious beauty of the moon goddess Diana. Chapter 12, Tana, the moon goddess. This story originally appeared in the Legends of Florence, collected from the people. While it does not strictly belong to the witch's gospel, it is closely related, as it also involves Diana. In this story, Diana appears as the lunar goddess of chastity, not as a witch. It was given to me as Fana, but my informant mentioned it could be Tana. She was uncertain. Since Tana occurs in another tale and the subject is certainly Diana, there is little doubt about the identification. Tana, the goddess of the moon. Tana was a very beautiful girl, but extremely poor. She was as modest and pure as she was beautiful and humble. To make a living, she went from one farmhouse to another, working and leading an honest life. There was a young man, a very ugly, brutish fellow, who was consumed by a raging love for her. However, Tana could not even bear to look at him and rejected all his advances. One night, as she was returning alone from a farmhouse where she had worked, this man, who had hidden himself in a thicket, leaped out at her, shouting, "You cannot escape, you will be mine." Seeing no help nearby and only the full moon above, Tana, in despair, fell to her knees and cried out to the moon. I have no one on earth to defend me. You alone see me in this danger. Therefore, I pray to you, O moon. As you are beautiful, so you are bright, shining your light over all of humanity. I pray that you cast your light into this poor man's soul, that he may let me be in peace, and allow me to return home. After she said this, a bright yet shadowy form appeared before her. The figure spoke. Rise, and go to your home. You have earned this grace. No one shall trouble you again. Purest of all on earth, you shall become a goddess, the goddess of the moon, and queen of all enchantments. Thus, Tana became the spirit of the moon. This story is a simple, poetic tale, similar in its tone to Wordsworth's Goody Blake and Harry Gill. Both Tana and the old woman in Wordsworth's poem find themselves in a desperate situation, praying to a higher power. In Goody Blake, the moon acts as a witness, while in this Italian tale, the moon directly intervenes to help the heroine. Both stories have the same central theme: a woman in distress calls upon a greater power for aid. In Wordsworth's tale, the consequence is a punishment Harry Gill is inflicted with an incurable fit of shivering. In contrast, the Italian story is more poetic and spiritual, as Tana is transformed into the moon goddess, leaving her oppressor behind. This tale represents a deeper sense of the moon as both a witness and an active participant in human affairs, particularly in matters of justice and protection for the innocent. Tana, the moon goddess 75. Doing full justice to its real meaning, and if it still actually thrills or moves as poetry, then it is of the first class. But if it has lost its glamour, absolutely, it is second-rate or inferior, for the best cannot be made out of mere words varnished with associations, be they of thought or feeling. This is not such a far cry from the subject as might be deemed. Reading and feeling them subjectively, one am often struck by the fact that in these witch traditions which one have gathered, there is a wondrous poetry of thought, which far excels the efforts of many modern bards, and which only requires the aid of some clever work man in words to assume the highest rank. A proof of what I have asserted may be found in the fact that, in such famous poems as The Finding of the Lyre, by James Russell Lowell, and that On the Invention of the Pipe by Pan, by Mrs. Browning, that which formed the most exquisite and refined portion of the original myths, is omitted by both authors, simply because they missed or did not perceive it. For in the former, we are not told that it was the breathing of the god Air, who was the inspiring soul of ancient music, and the Balaria of modern witch mythology, on the dried filament of the tortoise, which suggested to Hermes the making an instrument wherewith he made the music of the spheres and guided the course of the planets. As for Mrs. Browning, she leaves out syrinx altogether, that is to say, the voice of the nymph still lingering in the pipe which had been her body. Now to my mind the old prose narrative of these myths is much more deeply poetical and moving, and far more inspired with beauty and romance, than are the well-rhymed and measured, but very imperfect versions given by our poets. And in fact, such want of intelligence or perception may be found in all the classic poems, not only of Keats, but of almost every poet of the age who has dealt in Greek subjects. Great license is allowed to painters and poets. But when they take a subject, especially a deep tradition, and fail to perceive its real genuining, or catch its point, and simply give us something very pretty, but not so inspired with meaning as the original, it can hardly be claimed that they have done their work as it might, or, in fact, should have been done. I find that this fault does not occur in the Italian or Tuscan witch versions of the ancient fables. On the contrary, They keenly appreciate, and even expand, the antique spirit. Hence one have often had occasion to remark that it was not impossible that in some cases popular tradition, even as it now exists, has been preserved more fully and accurately than we find it in any Latin writer. Now apropos of missing the point, one would TWA, the moon goddess, remind certain very literal readers that if they find many faults of grammar, misspelling, and worse in the Italian texts in this book, they will not, as a distinguished reviewer has done, attribute them all to the ignorance of the author, but to the imperfect education of the person who collected and recorded them. I am reminded of this by having seen in a circulating library a copy of my Legends of Florence, in which some good, careful soul had taken pains with a pencil to correct all the archaisms, wherein he or she was like a certain Boston proofreader, who in a book of mine changed the spelling of many citations from Chaucer, Spenser, and others into the purest, or impurest, Webster, he being under the impression that I was extremely ignorant of orthography. As for the writing in or injuring books, which always belong partly to posterity, it is a sin of vulgarity as well as morality, and indicates what people are more than they dream. Only a cad as low as a thief would write in a book or turn down a leaf, since 'tis thievery, as well as known to make free with that which is not our own. Chapter Slil. Diana and the Children. And therewithal Diana Ganapara will bow see in wide right as an hunt res. And said daughter, stint thine bevan essie. And forth she went and made a vanishing. Chaucer, c7. Tkt Nye's Tale. There was in Florence in the oldest time a noble family, but grown so poor that their giorni di festa or feast days were few and far between. However, they dwelt in their old palace, which was in the street now called La Via Cittadella, which was a fine old building. And so they kept up a brave show before the world, when many a day they hardly had anything to eat. Round this palace was a large garden, in which stood an ancient marble statue of Diana, like a beautiful woman who seemed to be running with a dog by her side. She held in her hand a bow, and on her forehead was a small moon. And it was said that by night, when all was still, the statue became like life and fled, and did not return till the moon set or the sun rose. The father of the family had 2 children, who were good and intelligent. One day they came home with many flowers which had been given to them, and the little girl said to her brother, Diana and the children, the beautiful lady with the bow ought to have some of these. Saying this, Ihe laid flowers before the statue and made a wreath which the boy placed on her head. Just then the great poet and magician Virgil, who knew everything about the gods and fairies, entered the garden and said, smiling, You have made the offering of flowers to the goddess quite correctly, as they did of old. All that remains is to pronounce the prayer properly, and it is this. So he repeated the invocation to Diana. Bella dea del arco. Bella dea del frecci. Delia caccia e dei cani. Tu vegli coue stel. Quando 11 sol va dormir. Tu cala luna in front. Casai la notte meglio del di. Coue Tuesday ninf al suono. Di trombe sei la regna. Dei cacciatori regina della notte. Tu che sei la cacciatrice. Pil potenti di ogni cacciator ti prego. Fensa un poco a noi. The most impertinent port of Witchcraft is to uoa or accent the incantations accurately, in a emheimer like that of church spant ing or ab recitations. Hence the apparently prose form of Mosi. To Diana. Lovely goddess of the bow. Lovely goddess of the arrow's eye. Of all hounds and of all hooting. Thou who wakest in starry heaven. When the sun is sunk in slumber. Thou with moon upon thy forehead. Who the chase by night prevenest. Unto hunting in the daylight. With thy nymphs unto the music. Of the horn thyself the huntress. And most powerful, I pray thee. Think, although but for an instant. Upon us who pray unto thee one. Thcd Virgil taught them also this conjuraon or spell to be uttered when good fortune or aught is spicy. Ally required. The conjuration to Diana. Bella dea del arco del cielo. Del stile della luna. La regina pien potenti. Dei cacciatori della notte. Ate requoriamo. E chiedemo il tuo aiuto. Che tu possa darsi. Semper la buona fortuna. It is 10 be observed th3.ttb invocation is strictly a psalm of Priis o a hymn. This conjurazione is a request or prayer, though 3 are menace. This only eists in Jlana and the children. Fair goddess of Ihe rainbow. Of the stars and of the moon one. The queen most powerful. Of hunters and the night eye. We beg of thee thy aid. That thou mayest give to us. The best of fortune ever. Then he added the conclusion. Se la nostras conjuras tone. Ascilteri. E buona fortuna si dere. Unsanala noi lo dere. If thou heedest our evocation. And wilt give good fortune to us. Then in proof give us a tolton. Something is I omitted, foliage can, however, be supplied from many other similar incantations. It was probably as follows. If thou art favourable, and wilt grant my prayer, then may I hear the bark of a dog, the neigh of a horse, the croaking of a frog, the chirp of a bird, the song of a cricket, etc. 3 or 4 of these sounds were generally selected. They vary more or less, but seldom materially, from these. Sometimes visible manifestations, as, for instance, lightning, are requested. To see a white horse is a sign that the prayer will be granted. After some delay, it also signifies victory. And having taught them this, Virgil departed. Then the children ran to tell their patents all that had happened, and the latter impressed it on them to keep it a secret, nor breathe a word or hint thereof to any one. But what was their amazement when they found early the next morning before the statue a deer, freshly killed, which gave them good dinners for many a day, nor did they want thereafter at any time game of all kinds. When the prayer had been devoutly pronounced, there was a neighbor of this family, a priest, who held in hate all the ways and worship of the gods of the old time, and whatever did not belong to his religion. And he, passing the garden one day, beheld the statue of Diana crowned with roses and other flowers. And, being in a rage, and seeing in the street a decayed cabbage, he rolled it in the mud, and threw it all drip ping at the face of the goddess, saying, Ecco mala bestia di idoli. Questo e one omagio che io ti do. Gia che il diavolo ti aiuta. Behold, thou vile beast of idolatry. This is the worship which thou hast from me. And the devil do the rest for thee. Then the priest heard a voice in the gloom where the leaves were dense, and it said, Bene, bene. Tu mi hai fatto. El offrando tu avrei. La tua porzione. Delia mia caccia. Aspetta. Anna and the children. It is well. I give thee warning. Since thou hast made thy offering, some of the game to thee I'll bring. Thou lt have thy share in the morning. 1. All that night the priest suffered from horrible dreams. and dread, and when at last, just before 3 o'clock, he fell asleep, he suddenly awoke from a nightmare in which it seemed as if something heavy rested on his chest. And something indeed fell from him and rolled on the floor. And when he rose and picked it up, and looked at it by the light of the moon, he saw that it was a human head, half decayed. Another priest, who had heard his cry of terror, entered his room, and having looked at the head, said, "One know that face. It is of a man whom I confessed, and who was beheaded 3 months ago at Siena. And 3 days after the priest who had insulted the goddess died. The foregoing tale was not given to me as belonging to the Gospel of the Witches, but as one of a very large series of traditions relating to Virgil as a magician. But it has its proper place in this book, because it contains the invocation to an incantation of Diana, these being remarkably beautiful and original. When we la testa, di imuomo piena divern pueo lenal. A parody in kind for ihe decayed cabbage, much completer than TB end of the German tale Les Ombling IU. Remember how these hymns have been handed down or preserved by old women, and doubtless much garbled, changed, and deformed by transmission. It cannot but seem wonderful that so much classic beauty still remains in them, as, for instance, in Lovely Goddess of the Bow, Lovely Goddess of the Arrow, Thou who walkest in starry heaven. Robert Browning was a great poet, but if we compare all the Italian witch poems of and to Diana with the former's much admired speech of Diana Artemis, it will certainly be admitted by impartial critics that the spells are fully equal to the following by the bard. I am a goddess of the ambrosial courts, and save by here, queen of pride, surpassed by none whose temples whiten this the world. Through heaven I roll my ihusid moon along, I shed in hue o'er my pale people peace. On earth, I, caring for the creatures, guard each pregnant yellow wolf and fox bitch sleek, and every feathered mother's callow brood, and all that love green haunts and loneliness. This is pretty, but it is only imitation, and neither in form or spirit really equal to the incantations, which are sincere in faith. And it may here be observed in sorrow, yet in very truth, that in a very great number of modern Diana and the Children 85 poetical handlings of classic mythic subjects, the writers have, despite all their genius as artists, produced rococo work which will appear to be such to another generation, simply from their having missed the point, or omitted from ignorance something vital which the folklorist would probably not have lost. Achilles may be admire ably drawn, as I have seen him, in a Louis XIV wig, with a Turkish scimitar, but still one could wish that the designer had been a little more familiar with Greek garments and weapons. Chapter 14. The Goblin Messengers of Diana and Mercury. The following tale was not given to me as connected with the Gospel of the Witches, but as Diana appears in it, and as the whole conception is that of Diana and Apollo in another form, I include it in the series. Many centuries ago there was a photo, Gobunje or spirit, or Devi Langal Cht Saf who knows what, and Maritrioi who was the god of speed and of quickness. Being much pleased with this imp, bestowed on him the gift of running like the wind, with the privilege that whatever he pursued, be it spirit, a human being, or animal, he should certainly overtake or catch it. This photo had a beautiful sister, who, like him, ran errands, not for the gods, but for the goddesses. There was a female god for every male, even down to the small spirits, and Diana on the same day gave to this Fairy the power that, whoever might chase her, she should, if pursued, never be overtaken. One day the brother saw his sister speeding hkea flash of lightning across the heaven, and he felt a sudden, strange desire in rivalry to overtake her. So he dashed. Trademark the goblin messengers. After as she flitted on, but though it was his destiny to catch, she had been fated never to be caught, and so the will of one supreme God was balanced by that of another. So the two kept flying round and round the edge of heaven, and at first all the gods roared with laughter. But when they understood the case, they grew serious, and asked one another how it was to end. Then the great Father God said, "Behold the earth, which is in darkness and gloom. I will change the sister into a moon, and her brother into a sun. And so shall she ever escape him, yet will he ever catch her with his light, which shall fall on her from afar, for the rays of the sun are his hands, which reach forth with burning grasp, yet which are ever eluded. And thus it is said that this race begins anew with the first of every month, when the moon being cold is covered weak as many coats as an omen. But while the race is being run, as the moon becomes warm, she casts off one garment after another, till she is naked and then stops, and then when dressed the race begins again. As the vast storm cloud falls in glittering drops, even so the great myths of the olden time are broken up into small fairy tales, and as these drops in turn reunite, en riviero u sur istang, on silent lake or streamlet Ione, as Villon hath it, even so minor myths are again formed from the fallen waters. In this story we clearly have the dog made by Vulcan, and the wolf Jupiter settled the question by petrifying them, as you may read in Julius Pollux his 5th book, or any other on mythology. Is Canis foot postea di Jove in lapidem conversus. Which hunting hound was changed by Jupit, as well as known to stone. It is remarkable that in this story the moon is compared to an onion. The onion, says Friedrich Symbolik der Natur, p. 348, was, on account of its many skins, among the Egyptians, the emblem and hieroglyph of the many-formed moon, whose different phases are so clearly seen in the root when it is cut through, also because its growth or decrease corresponds with that of the planet. Therefore it was dedicated to Isis, the moon goddess. And for this reason the onion was so holy as to be regarded as having in itself something of deity, for which reason Juvenal remarks that the Egyptians were happy people to have gods growing in their gardens. Chapter 15. The following very curious tale, with the incantation, was not in the text of the Vangelo, but it very evidently belongs to the cycle or series of legends connected with it. Diana is declared to be the protectress of all outcasts, those to whom the night is their day, consequently of thieves, and lavema, as we may learn from Horace Epistles, I6, I, and Plautus, was eminently the patroness of pilfering and all rascality. In this story she also appears as a witch and humorist. It was given to me as a tradition of Virgil, who often appears as one familiar with the marvelous and hidden lore of the olden time. It happened on a time that Virgil, who knew all things hidden or magical, he who was a magician and poet, having heard a speech, or oration, by a famous talker who had not much in him, was asked what he thought of it. And he replied, "It seems to me to be impossible to tell whether it was all introduction or all conclusion, certainly there Aradia was no body in it. It was like certain fish of whom one is in doubt whether they are all head or all tail, or only head and tail, or the goddess Lavma, of whom no one ever knew whether she was all head or all body, or neither or both. Then the emperor inquired who this deity might be, for he had never heard of her. And Virgil replied, among the gods or spirits who were of ancient times, may they be ever favorable to us, one among them was one female who was the craftiest and most knavish of them all. She was called Laverna. She was a thief, and very little known to the other deities, who were honest and dignified, for she was rarely in heaven or in the country of the fairies. She was almost always on earth, among thieves, pickpockets, and panders. She lived in darkness. Once it happened that she went to a mortal, a great priest in the form and guise of a very beautiful stately priestess, of some goddess, and said to him, you have an estate which I wish to buy. I intend to build on it a temple to, God. I swear to you on my body that I will pay thee within a year. Therefore the priest transferred to her the estate. And very soon Lavma had sold off all the crops, grain, cattle, wood, and poultry. There was not left the value of 4 farthings. But on the day fixed for payment there was no Lavma to be seen. The fair goddess was far away, and had left her creditor in Asso in the lurch. At the same time Lavma went to a great lord and bought of him a castle, well furnished within and broad, rich lands without. But this time she swore on her head to pay in full, in 6 months. And as she had done by the priest, so she acted to the lord of the castle, and stole and sold every stick, furniture, cattle, men, and mice there was not left wherewith to feed a fly. Then the priest and the lord, finding out who this was, appealed to the gods, complaining that they had been robbed by a goddess. And it was soon made known to them all that this was Lavma. Therefore she was called to judgment before all the gods. And when she was asked what she had done with the property of the priest, unto whom she had sworn by her body to make payment at the time appointed, and why had she broken her oath, she replied by a strange deed which amazed them all, for she made her body disappear, so that only her head remained visible, and it cried, behold me! One swore by my body, but body have I none. Then all the gods laughed. After the priest came the lord who had also been tricked, and to whom she had sworn by her head. And in reply to him Lavma showed to all present her whole body without mincing matters, and it was one of extreme beauty, but without a head, and from the neck thereof came a voice which said, behold me, for I am Laverna, who have come to answer to that lord's complaint, who swears that I contracted debt to him, and have not paid although the time is o'er, and that I am a thief because I swore upon my head, but, as you all can see, I have no head at all, and therefore I assuredly ne'er swore by such a oath. Then there was indeed a storm of laughter among the gods, who made the matter right by ordering they head to join the body, and bidding Laverna pay up her debts, which she did. Then Jove spoke and said, here is a roguish goddess without a duty, or a worshipper, while there are in Rome innumerable thieves, sharpers, cheats, and rascals ladri, bindolini, iruffaforii scrocani who live by deceit. These good folk have neither a church nor a god. And it is a great pity, for even the very devils have their master, Satan, as the head of the family. Therefore, I command that in future Laverna shall be the goddess of all the knaves or dishonest tradesmen, with the whole rubbish and refuse of the human race, who have been hitherto without a god or a devil, inasmuch as they have been too despicable for the one or the other. K93 And so Lavma became the goddess of all dishonest and shabby people. Whenever anyone planned or intended any knavery or aught wicked, he entered her temple, and invoked Lavma, who appeared to him as a woman's head. But if he did his work of knavery badly or maladroitly, when he again invoked her he saw only the body, but if he was clever, then he beheld the whole goddess, head and body. Av, Ma was no more chaste than she was honest, and had many lovers and many children. It was said that not being bad at heart or cruel, she often repented her life and sins, but do what she might, she could not reform, because her passions were so inveterate. And if a man had got any woman with child or any maid found herself on Sanyu, and would hide it from the world and escape scandal, they would go every day to invoke Lavma. Then when the time came for the suppliant to be delivered, Lavma would bear her in sleep during the night to her temple, and after the birth cast her into slumber again, and bear her back to her bed at home. And when she awoke in the morning, she was ever in vigorous health and felt no weariness, and all seemed to her as a dream. But to those who desired in time to reclaim this was very peculiar character is lie of Diana, who was involved in a similar manner. IHA.ve here omitted much needless verbiage or repetition in the original Ms and also abbreviated what, Ohokos. All of this indicates unmistakably, in several respects, a genuine tradition. In the hands of CMFLY priests this would prove a great aid to popularity. Children, Zavma was indulgent if they led such lives as pleased her and faithfully worshipped her. And this is the ceremony to be performed and the incantation to be offered every night to Laverna. There must be a set place devoted to the goddess, be it a room, a cellar, or a grove, but ever a solitary place. Then take a small table of the size of 40 playing cards set close together, and this must be hid in the same place, and going there at night, take 40 cards and spread them on the table, making of them a close carpet or cover on it. Take of the herbs Paera and Concordia, and boil the two together, repeating meanwhile the following. Scingit. Fa boer la mano della Concordia. Per tenera a mi concordo. La laverna che passa portar a mi. Tu mio figlio, e che passa. Guardarmeli da qualun pericolo. Bouo questa erba, man non hollow one erba. Bolo la/ritera che passa tenera lontano. Qualunque persona escelevine. L'idea aquacino di asinarsi. Passa essere preso de pora. E fugire lontano. I conjecture this is wild poppy. The poppy was spedilly sassied to Ceres, but also to the night and its rites, and Leoitma was a noctunid deity, a play on the word Ufu, or feet. Incantation. I boil the cluster of Concordia, to keep in concord and at peace with me, Laverna, that she may restore to me my child, and that she by her favouring care may guard me well from danger all my life. I boil this herb, yet 'tis not it which boils. I boil her fear, that it may keep afar any intruder, and if such should come to spy upon my right, may he be struck with fear and in his terror haste away. Having said thus, put the boiled herbs in a bottle, and spread the cards on the table one by one, saying, Baditso quest 40 cart. Ma non baditso, e 40 cart. Bat ezo 40 dei superi. Alia dea laverna che lisu. Per son divengono un volcano. Fino che la laverna non sera. Venuta da mi coua mia creatura. E quesli dei dal naso dalla bocca. E dal orecchio passano butter. Fiammi di fuoco e cenere. This passage recalls strangely enough the worship of the Grsko-Roman goddess Favoroivici, the Altea Deity on Mars. She was much invoked, as in the present instance, to terrify an Nideus or an enemy. Sikalui makes the 7 chiefs before Thebes swear by Fiar, Maze, and Bellona. Mem. Academic, F. Inscriptions. Elisire Paisi Bani Alia Dea. Lavema, Che Pasa Ank Essa. Abrasier I Swoi Fai. Asua Voluntat. Incantation. I spread before me now the 40 cards. Yet 'tis not 40 cards which here I spread, but 40 of the gods superior to the deity Lavema, that their forms may each and all become volcanoes hot, until Laverna comes and brings my child. And till 'tis done may they all cast at her hot flames of fire, and with them glowing coals, from noses, mouths, and ears, until she yields. Then may they leave Laverna to her peace, free to embrace her children at her will. Laverna was the Roman goddess of thieves, pickpockets, shopkeepers or dealers, plagiarists, rascals, and hypocrites. There was near Rome a temple in a grove where robbers went to divide their plunder. There was a statue of the goddess. Her image, according to some, was a head without a body, according to others, a body without a head, but the epithet of beautiful applied to her by Horace indicates that she who gave disguises to her worshippers had kept one to herself. She was worshipped in perfect silence. 97. This is confirmed by a passage in Horace. Epist I 6, lib. I, where an impostor, hardly daring to move his lips, repeats the following prayer or incantation. O goddess Laverna, I give me thy art of cheating and deceiving, of making men believe that I am just, holy, and innocent. Extend all darkness and deep obscurity o'er my misdeeds. It is interesting to compare this unquestioned, ably ancient classic invocation to Lavema with the one which is before given. The goddess was extensively known to the lower orders, and in Plautus a cook who has been robbed of his implements calls on her to revenge him. I call special attention to the fact that in this, as in a great number of Italian witch incantations, the deity or spirit who is worshipped, be it Diana herself or Lavema, is threatened with torment by a higher power until he or she grants the favor demanded. This is quite classic, i.e., Greco-Roman or Oriental, in all of which sources the magician relies not on favor, aid, or power granted by either God or Satan, but simply on what he has been able to wrench and wring, as it were, out of infinite nature or the primal source by penance and 98 Arabia. Study. I mention this because a reviewer has reproached me with exaggerating the degree to which diabolism introduced by the Church since 1500 is deficient in Italy. But in fact, among the higher class of witches, or in their traditions, it is hardly to be found at all in Christian diabolism. The witch never dares to threaten Satan or God, or any of the Trinity or angels. For the whole system is based on the conception of a church and of obedience. The herb Concordia probably takes its name from that of the goddess Concordia, who was represented as holding a branch. It plays a great part in witchcraft, after verbena and rue. Appendix. Comments on the foregoing texts. So long ago as the year 1856 I learned that there was in existence a manuscript setting forth the doctrines of Italian witchcraft, and I was promised that, if possible, it should be obtained for me. In this I was for a time disappointed. But having urged it on Madalena, my collector of folklore, while she was leading a wandering life in Tuscany, to make an effort To obtain or recover something of the kind, 1. At last received from her, on January r. 1897. From Colle, Videisa, near Siena, the MS. Entitled Aradia, or the Gospel of the Witches. Now be it observed, that every leading point, which forms the plot or center of this Vangel, such as that Diana is Queen of the Witches, an associate of Herodias Aradia, in her relations to sorcery, that she bore a child to her brother the sun, here Lucifer, that as a moon goddess she is in some relation to Cain, who dwells as prisoner in the moon, and that the witches of old were people oppressed by feudal lands, the former revenging themselves in every way, and holding orgies to Diana, which the Church represented as being the worship of Satan. All of this, I repeat, had been told or written out for me in fragments by Madalena, not to speak of other authorities, even as it had been chronicled by Horst or Michelet. Therefore all this is in the present document of minor importance. All of this I expected, but what I did not expect, and what was new to me, was that portion which is given as prose poetry and which I have rendered in meter or verse. This being traditional, and taken down from wizards, is extremely curious and interesting, since in it are preserved many relics of lore which, as may be verified from records, have come down from days of yore. Aradia is evidently enough Herodias, who was regarded in the beginning as associated with Diana as chief of the witches. This was not, as I opine, derived from the Herodias of the New Testament, but from an earlier replica of Lilith, bearing the same name. It is, in fact, an identification or twining of the Aryan and Shemitic queens of heaven, or of night and of sorcery, and it may be that this was known to the earliest mythmakers. So far back as the 6th century the worship of Herodias and Diana by witches was condemned by a church council at Ancira. Pipernus and other writers have noted the evident identity gf. Herodias with Lilith. His preceded both. Diana is very vigorously, even dramatically, set forth in this poem as the goddess of the God-forsaken and ungodly, of thieves, harlots, and, truthfully enough, of the minions of the moon, as Falstaff would have fain had them called. It was recognized in ancient Rome, as it is in modern India, that no human being can be so bad or vile as to have forfeited all right to divine protection of some kind or other, and Diana was this protectress. It may be as well to observe here, that among all free-thinking philosophers, educated pariahs, and literary or book bohemians, there has ever been a most unorthodox tendency to believe that the faults and errors of humanity are more due, if not altogether due, to unavoidable causes which we cannot help, as, for instance, heredity, they being born savages, or poor, or in vice, or unto bigotry and virtue in excess, or unto inquisitioning, that is to say, when we are so burdened with innately born sin that all our free will cannot set us free from it. It was during the so-called Dark Ages, or from the downfall of the Roman Empire until the 13th century, that the belief that all, hence the saying to know all would be to forgive all. Audiobook may be 9/10 tu, but there is 10th of responsible. Which was worst in man owed its origin solely to the monstrous abuses and tyranny of church and state. For then, at every turn in life, the vast majority encountered downright shameless, palpable iniquity and injustice, with no law for the weak who were without patrons. The perception of this drove vast numbers of the discontented into rebellion, and as they could not prevail by open warfare, they took their hatred out in a form of secret anarchy, which was, however, intimately blended with superstition and fragments of old tradition. Prominent in this, and naturally enough, was the worship of Diana the Protectress, for the alleged adoration of Satan was a far later invention of the Church, and it has never really found a leading place in Italian witchcraft to this day. That is to say, purely diabolical witchcraft did not find general acceptance till the end of the 15th century, when it was, one may almost say, invented in Rome to supply means wherewith to destroy the threatening heresy of Gymony. The growth of sentiment is the increase of suffering. Man is never entirely miserable until he finds out how wronged he is and fancies that he sees far ahead a possible freedom. In ancient times, men as slaves suffered less under even more abuse, because they believed they were born to low conditions of life. Even the best reform brings pain with it, and the great awakening of man was accompanied with griefs, many of which even yet endure. Pessimism is the result of too much culture and introversion. It appears to be strangely out of sight and out of mind with all historians, that the sufferings of the vast majority of mankind, or the enslaved and poor, were far greater under early Christianity, or till the end of the Middle Ages, and the emancipation of serfs, than they were before. The reason for this was that in the old heathen time the humble did not know, or even dream, that all are equal before God, or that they had many rights, even here on earth, as slaves, for, in fact, the whole moral tendency of the New Testament is utterly opposed to slavery, or even severe servitude. Every word uttered teaching Christ's mercy and love, humility and charity, was, in fact, a bitter reproof, not only to every lord in the land, but to the Church itself, and its arrogant prelates. The fact that many abuses had been mitigated and that there were benevolent saints, does not affect the fact that, on the whole, mankind was for a long time worse off than before, and the greatest cause of this suffering was what may be called a sentimental one, or a newly born consciousness of rights withheld, which is always of itself a torture. And this was greatly aggravated by the endless preaching to the people that it was a duty to suffer and endure oppression and tyranny, and that the rights of authority of all kinds were so great that they on the whole even excused their worst abuses. For by upholding authority in the nobility the Church maintained its own. The result of it all was a vast development of rebels, outcasts, and all the discontented, who adopted witchcraft or sorcery for a religion, and wizards as their priests. They had secret meetings in desert places, among old ruins, accursed by priests as the haunt of evil spirits, or ancient heathen gods, or in the mountains. To this day the dweller in Italy may often find secluded spots environed by ancient chestnut forests, rocks, and walls, which suggest fit places for the Sabbat, and are sometimes still believed by tradition to be such. And I also believe that in this Gospel of the Witches we have a trustworthy outline at least of the doctrine and rites observed at these meetings. They adored forbidden deities and practiced forbidden deeds, inspired as much by rebellion against society as by their own passions. There is, however, in the Evangel of the Witches an effort made to distinguish between the naturally wicked or corrupt and those who are outcasts or oppressed, as appears from the yet like Cain's daughter, offspring, thou shalt never be, nor like the race who have become at last wicked and infamous from suffering, as are the Jews and wandering Zingari, who are all thieves, like them ye shall not be. The supper of the witches, the cakes of meal, salt, and honey, in the form of crescent moons, are known to every classical scholar. They moon or horn-shaped cakes are still common. I have eaten of them this very day, and though they are known all over the world, I believe they owe their fashion to tradition. In the conjuration of the meal there is a very curious tradition introduced to the effect that the spige or glittering grains of wheat from which spikes shoot like sun rays, owe their brilliant likeness to a resemblance to the fire fly, who comes to give them light. We have, one doubt not, in this a classic tradition, but I cannot verify it. Hereupon the Vangelo cites a common nursery rhyme, which may also be found in a nursery tale, yet which, like others, is derived from witch lore, by which the luchula is put under a glass and conjured to give by its light certain answers. The conjuration of the meal or bread, as being literally our body as contributing to form it, and deeply sacred because it had lain in the earth, where dark and wondrous secrets bide, seems to cast a new light on the Christian sacrament. It is a type of resurrection from the earth, and was therefore used at the mysteries and Holy Supper, and the grain had pertained to Tuscanic secrets, or to what had been under the earth in darkness. Thus even earthworms are invoked in modern witchcraft as familiar with dark mysteries, and the shepherd's pipe to win the Orphic power must be buried 3 days in the earth. And so all was, and is, in sorcery, a kind of wild poetry based on symbols, all blending into one another, light and darkness, fire, cease and grain, fey and death. Very strange indeed, but very strictly according to ancient magic as described by classic authorities, is the threatening Diana, in case she will not grant a prayer. This recurs continually in the witch exorcisms or spells. The magus, or witch, worships the spirit, but claims to have the right, drawn from a higher power, to compel even the Queen of Earth, Heaven, and Hell to grant the request, give me what I ask, and thou shalt have honor and offerings, refuse, and I will vex thee by insult. So Canadia and her kind boasted that they could compel the gods to appear. This is all classic. No one ever heard of a satanic witch invoking or threatening the Trinity, or Christ, or even the angels or saints. In fact, they cannot even compel the devil or his imps to obey. They work entirely by his goodwill as slaves. But in the old Italian lore the sorcerer or witch is all or nothing, and aims at limitless will or power. Of the ancient belief in the virtues of a perforated stone I need not speak. But it is to be remarked that in the invocation the witch goes forth in the earliest morning to seek for verbena, or vervain. The ancient Persian magi, or rather their daughters, worshipped the sun as it rose by waving freshly plucked verbena, which was one of the 7 most powerful plants in magic. These Persian priestesses were naked while they thus worshipped, nudity being a symbol of truth and sincerity. The extinguishing the lights, nakedness, and the orgy, were regarded as symbolical of the body being laid in the ground, the grain being planted, or of entering into darkness and death, to be revived in new forms, or regeneration and light. It was the laying aside of daily life. The Gospel of the Witches, as one have given it, is in reality only the initial chapter of the Col. Lection of ceremonies, cantrips, incantations, and traditions current in the fraternity or sisterhood, the whole of which are in the main to be found in my Etruscan Roman remains and Florentine legends. One have, it is true, a great number as yet unpublished, and there are more ungathered, but the whole scripture of this sor series, all its principal tenets, formulas, medica ments, and mysteries may be found in what I have collected and printed. Yet I would urge that it would be worthwhile to arrange and edit it all into one work, because it would be to every student of archaeology, folklore, or history of great value. It has been the faith of millions in the past, it has made itself felt in innumerable traditions, which deserve to be better understood than they are, and one would gladly undertake the Friedrich, Symbolic, P2S3 work if I believed that the public would make it worth the publisher's outlay and pains. It may be observed with truth that I have not treated this gospel, nor even the subject of witchcraft, entirely as folklore, as the word is strictly defined and carried out, that is, as a mere traditional fact or thing to be chiefly regarded as a variant like or unlike sundry other traditions, or to be tabulated and put away in pigeonholes for reference. That it is useful and sensible to do all this is perfectly true, and it has led to an immense amount of valuable search, collection, and preservation. But there is this to be said, and one have observed that here and there a few genial minds are beginning to awake to it, that the mere study of the letter in this way has developed a great indifference to the spirit, going in many cases so far as to produce, like realism in art, to which it is allied, even a contempt for the matter or meaning of it, as originally believed in. I was lately much struck by the fact that in a very learned work on music, the author, in discussing that of ancient times and of the East, while extremely accurate and minute in determining pentatonic and all other scales, and what may be called the mere machinery and history of composition, showed that he was utterly ignorant of the fundamental fact that notes and chords, bars, and melodies were in themselves ideas or thoughts. Thus Confucius is said to have composed a melody which was a personal description of himself. Now if this be not understood, we cannot understand the soul of early music, and the folklorist who cannot get beyond the letter and fancies himself scientific is exactly like the musician who has no idea of how or why melodies were anciently composed. The strange and mystical chapter How Diana Made the Stars and the Rain is the same given in my Legends of Florence, Vol. 2. p. 229, but much enlarged, or developed to 2. Cosmogo Nic mythologic sketch. And here a reflection occurs which is perhaps the most remarkable which all this witch evangel suggests. In all other scriptures of all races, it is the male Jehovah, Buddha, or Brahma, who creates the universe, in which sorcery it is the female who is the primitive principle. Whenever in history there is a period of radical intellectual rebellion against long-established conservatism, hierarchy, and the like, there is always an effort to regard woman as the fully equal, which means the superior sex. Thus in the extraordinary war of conflicting elements, strange schools of SOR, Siri, Neoplatonism, Kabbalah, heretic Christianity, Gnosticism, Persian magism, and dualism, with the remains of Old Greek and Egyptian theologies. In the 3rd and 4th centuries at Alexandria, and in the House of Light of Cairo in the 9th, the equality of woman was a prominent doctrine. It was Sophia or Helena, the enfranchised, who was then the true Christ who was to save mankind. When illumination or illuminforism, in company with magic and mysticism, and a resolve to regenerate society according to extreme free thought, inspired the Templars to the hope that they would master the Church and the world. The equality of woman, derived from the Carine traditions, again received attention. And it may be observed that during the Middle Ages, and even so late as the intense excitements which inspired the French Huguenots, the Jansenists, and the Anabaptists, woman always came forth more prominently or played a far greater part than she had done in social or political life. This was also the case in the spiritualism founded by the Fox Sisters of Rochester, New York, and it is manifesting itself in many ways. In the fin de style, which is also a nervous chaos according to Nordau, woman being evidently a fish who shows herself most when the waters are troubled. O, woman, in our hours of ease. The reader will remember the rest. But we should also remember that in the earlier ages, the vast majority of mankind itself, suppressed by the too great or greatly abused power of Church and State, only manifested itself at such periods of rebellion against forms or ideas grown old. And with every new rebellion, every fresh outburst or debauch or wild inundation and burst over the barriers, humanity and woman gain something, that is to say, their just dues or rights. For as every freshet spreads more widely its waters over the fields, which are in due time they more fertilized thereby, so the world at large gains by every revolution, however terrible or repugnant it may be for a time. The emancipated or woman's rights woman, when too enthusiastic, generally considers man as limited, while woman is destined to gain on him. In earlier ages a contrary opinion prevailed, and both are, or were, apparently in the wrong, so far as the future is concerned. For in truth both sexes are progressive, and progress in this respect means not a conflict of the male and female principle, such as formed the basis of the Makkah Barada, but a gradual ascertaining of true ability, an adjustment of relations or coordination of powers in doing which on a scientific basis all conflict ceases. These remarks are appropriate to my text and subject, because it is in studying the epics when woman has made herself prominent and influential that we learn what the capacities of the female sex truly are. Among these, that of witchcraft as it truly was not as it is generally quite misunderstood is as deeply interesting as any other. For the witch, laying aside all question as to magic or its non-existence, was once a real factor or great power in rebellious social life, and to this very day as most novels bear witness it is recognized that there is some thing uncanny, mysterious, and incomprehensible in woman, which neither she herself nor man can explain. For every woman is at heart a witch. We have banished the broom and the cat, and the working miracles, the Sabbat and Pax, with Satan, but the mystery or puzzle is as great as ever. No one living knows to what it is destined to lead. Are not the charms of love of every kind, and the enjoyment of beauty in all its forms in nature, mysteries, miracles, or magical? To all who are interested in this subject of woman's influence and capacity, this evangel of the witches will be of value as showing that there have been strange thinkers who regarded creation as a feminine development or partheno Genesis from which the masculine principle Vipas, born, Lucifer, or light, lay hidden in the darkness of Diana, as heat is hidden in ice. But the regenerator or Messiah of this strange doctrine is a woman Aradia, though the two, mother and daughter, are confused or reflected in the different tales, even as Jacques is confused with the Elohim. Remains to be said that the Adamnable and Evil, or Adamite assemblages enjoined in the Gospel of Sorcery, are not much, if at all, kept up by the now few and far between old or young witches and venerable wizards of the present day. That is to say, not to my know ledge in central or northern Italy, but among the Roe, vivers, and fast women of Florence and Milan, where they are not quite as rare as eclipses. Such assemblies are called Balh Angelici, or angels' balls. They are indeed far from being unknown in any of the great cities of the world. A few years ago a Sunday newspaper in an American city published a detailed account of them in the dance houses of the town, declaring that they were of very frequent occurrence, which was further verified to me by men familiar with them. A very important point to all who regard the finds or discoveries of ancient tradition as of importance, is that a deep and extensive study of the Italian witch traditions which one have collected, a comparison of them one with the other, and of the whole with what resembles it in the writings of Ovid and other mythologists, force the conviction, which I have often expressed, but not too frequently, that there are in these later records many very valuable and curious remains of an ancient Latin or Etruscan lore, in all probability entire poems, tales, and invocations which have passed over from the ancient tongue. If this be true, and when it shall come to pass that scholars will read with interest what is here given, then most assuredly there will be critical examination and very cation of what is ancient in it, and it will be discovered what marvels of tradition still endure, that the witches even yet form a fragmentary secret society or sect, that they call it that of the old religion, and that there are in the Romagna entire villages in which the people are completely heathen, and almost entirely governed by seti mani or 7 months children, may be read in the novel of that name, as well as several papers published in divers magazines, or accepted from my own personal knowledge. The existence of a religion supposes a scripture, and in this case it may be admitted, almost without severe verification, that the Evangel of the Witches is really a very old work. Thus it is often evident that where a tradition has been taken down from verbal delivery, the old woman repeats words or sentences by whole chapters which she does not fully understand, but has heard and learned. These are to be verified by correlation or comparison with other tales and texts. Now considering all this most carefully and critically, or severely yet impartially, no one can resist the conviction that in this Gospel of the Witches we have a book which is in all probability the translation of some early or later Latin work, since it seems most probable that every fixed faith finds its record. There are literary men among the pariahs of India. There were probably many among the minions of the moon, or nocturnal worshippers of Diana. In fact, 1 am not without hope that research may yet reveal in the writings of some long-forgotten heretic or mystic of the Dark Ages the parallel of many passages in this text, if not the whole of it. Yet a few years, reader, and all this will have vanished from among the Italians before the newspaper and railroad, even as a light cloud is driven before a gale, or pass away like snow flakes in a pond. Old traditions are, in fact, disappearing with such incredible rapidity that 1 am assured on best authority and can indeed see for myself that what I collected or had recorded for me 10 years ago in the Romagna, Toscana, with exceptionably skillful aid, could not now be gathered at all by anybody, since it no longer exists, save in the memories of a few old sorcerers who are daily disappearing, leaving no trace behind. It is going. It is all but gone. In fact, I often think that, old as I am, and I am 12 years beyond the meet of extreme old age as defined by the Duke of Marlborough in his defence, I shall yet live to hear the rap of the auctioneer time as he bids off the last real Latin sorcerer to death. It may be that he is passing in his checks even as I write. The women or witches, having more vitality, will last a little longer. I mean the traditional kind, for as regards innate natural development of witchcraft and pure custom, we shall always have with us sorceresses, even as we shall have the poor until we all go up together. What is very remarkable, even to the being difficult to understand, is the fact that so much antique tradition survived with so little change among the peasantry. But legends and spells in families of hereditary witches are far more to live than fashions in art, yet even the latter have been kept since 2000 years. Thus, as E. Neville Rolfe writes, the late signer Castellani, who was the first to reproduce with fidelity the jewellery found in the tombs of Etruria and Greece, made up his mind that some survival of this ancient and exquisite trade must still exist somewhere in Italy. He accordingly made diligent search, and in and out of the Way village discovered goldsmiths who made ornaments for the peasants, which in their character indicated a strong survival of early Etruscan art. I am here reminded, by a strange coincidence, I having rediscovered the very ancient and highest art of the Chinese how to make bottles or vases on which inscriptions, NC, appeared when wine was poured into them, communicated the discovery on the pot where I made it to the brother O. Siphonor Castellani, Sir Austin Laird, who had sent for him to hear and judge of it. Being present, Signor Castellani the younger was overseer of the glassworks at Murano, in which I made the discovery. Signor Castellani said he had read of these Chinese vases, and always regarded the story as a fable or impossible, but that they could be made perfectly by my process, adding, however, that they would cost too much to make it profitable. I admit that I have little faith in lost arts beyond reconveying, described in my book, unpublished, on the Hundreitma Imre Arts, Li 9. And here I would remark, that where I have written perhaps a little too bitterly of the indifference of scholars to the curious traditions preserved by wizards and witches, I refer to Rome, and especially to northern Italy. G. Petri did all that was possible for one man as regards the south. Since the foregoing chapters were written, I received Naples in the 90s, by E. Neville Rolfe, B.A., in which a deep and intelligent interest in the subject is well supported by extensive knowledge. What will be to the reader of my book particularly interesting is the amount of information which Mr. Rolfe gives regarding the connection of Diana with witchcraft, and how many of her attributes became those of the Madonna. The worship of Diana, as he says, prevailed very extensively, so much so, that when Christianity superseded paganism, much of the heathen symbolism was adapted to the new rites, and the transition from the worship of Diana to that of the Madonna was made comparatively simple. Mr. Rolfe speaks of the key, rue, and verbena as symbols of Diana. Of all of these I have incantations, apparently very ancient, and identified with Diana. I have often found rue in houses in Florence, and had it given to me as a special favor. It is always concealed in some dark corner, because to take any away is to take luck. The bronze frog was an emblem of Diana, hence the Latin proverb, "He who loves a frog regards it as Diana." It was made till recent times as an amulet. I have one as a paperweight now before me. There is also an incantation to the frog, that wherein Mr. Rolfe tacitly and unconsciously confirms what I have written, and what is most remarkable in this my own work, is that the wizards in Italy form a distinct class, still exercising great power in Naples and Sicily, and even possessing very curious magical documents and Kabbalistic charts, one of which, familiar to those who have seen it among the Takruri and Arab sorcerers in Cairo, in their books, he gives. These probably are derived from Malta. Therefore it will not seem astonishing to the reader that this Gospel of the Witches should have been preserved, even as I have given it. That I have not had or seen it in an old Ms. is certainly true. But that it has been written of yore, and is still repeated here and there orally, in separate parts, I am sure it would be a great gratification to me if any among those into whose hands this book may fall, who may possess information confirming what is here set forth, would kindly either communicate it or publish it in some form, so that it may not be lost. In a very recent work by Messrs. Nefero and Dotzili, entitled La Mala Iida Arsma, Evil Life in Rome, there is a chapter devoted to the witches of the Eternal City, of whom the writer says, "They form a class so hidden ill the most Roman of Romans is perhaps ignorant of their existence." This is true of the real Esertka Hoff, not of mere fortune-tellers, who ai the children of Diana, or how the fairies were born. All things were made by Diana, the great spirits of the stars, men in their time and place, the giants which were of old, and the dwarfs who dwell in the rocks, and once a nymph worship her with cakes. There was once a young man who was poor, without parents, yet was he good. One night he sat in a lonely place, yet it was very beautiful, and there he saw 1,000 little fairies, shining white, dancing in the light of the full moon. "Gladly would I be like you, O fairies," said the youth, "free from care, needing no food." "But what are yet? We are moonrays, the children of Diana," replied one. "We are children of the moon. We are born of shining light. When the moon shoots forth a ray, then it takes a fairy's form. And thou art one of us because thou wert born when the moon, our mother Diana, was full, yes, our brother, kin to us, belonging to our band. And if thou art hungry and poor, and wilt have money in thy pocket, then think upon the moon, on Diana, unto whom thou werc born, then repeat these words: Luna mia, bella luna, pil di una altra stella, tu sei semper bella, portatemi la buona fortuna I. Moon, moon, beautiful moon one, fairer far than any star. Moon, O moon, if it may be, bring good fortune unto me. And then, if thou hast money in thy pocket, thou wilt have it doubled. For the children who are born in a full moon are sons or daughters of the moon, especially when they are born of a Sunday when there is a high tide. Alta Maria, Luna Piena, Psi. Grande uomo sicuro tu sarel. Full moon, high sea. Great man shalt thou be. Then the young man, who had only a bow in his purse, touched it, saying, Luna mia, bella luna. Mia semper bella luna I. Moon, moon, beautiful moon. Ever be my lovely moon I. 5 Pishi, Roman money. And so the young man, wishing to make money, bought and sold and made money, which he doubled every month. But it came to pass that after a time, during 1 month he could sell nothing, so made nothing. So by night he said to the moon, Luna mia, Luna bella. Che io amo piud ultra stella 1. Dimmi perci e fatato. Che io niente, ho guadagnato. Moon, O moon, whom I by far love beyond another star. Tell me why it was ordained that I this month have nothing gained? Then there appeared to him a little shining elf, who said, Tu non devi aspettar. Altro che vai udere. Quando fai ben lavorare. Money will not come to thee. Nor any help or aid can stc. Unless you work industriously. Then he added, Io non darò mai denaro. Ma audo, mio caro. Money I ne'er give, 'tis clear. Only help to thee, my dear. To be born under a full moon means to have an enlightened mind and a high tide of inspiration, intellect, and deep thoughts. It is not enough to simply have fortune's favor. Blessings also help. But to travel well you must row the boat. We can talk and wish it so. But no boat moves without an oar. As the saying goes, fortune gives and fortune takes. And to man a fortune makes. Sometimes to those who laze. But more often to those who work. Diana, Queen of the Serpents, giver of the gift of languages. In a long and strange legend of Melambo, a Magian and great physician of divine birth, there is an invocation to Diana which has a proper place in this work. The incident in which it occurs is as follows. One day Melambo asked his mother how it was that, while it had been promised that he should know the land gauge of all living things, it had not yet come to pass. And his mother replied, Patience, my son, for it is by waiting and watching ourselves that we learn how to be taught. And thou hast within thee the teachers who can impart thee most, if thou wilt seek to hear them, yes, the professors who can teach thee more in a few minutes than others learn in a life. It befell that one evening Melambo, thinking on this, while playing with a nest of young serpents which his servant had found in a hollow oak, said, I would that I could talk with you. Well, I know that ye have a language as graceful as why, as brilliant as why. Then he fell asleep, and the young serpents twined in his hair and began to lick his lips and eyes, while their mother sang, Diana, 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 Regina del Stregge, Pound della notte oscura, Pound di tutta la natura, del stelle e della luna, e di tutta la fortuna, tu che reggi la Maria, che risplendi il mare nella sera, calla lu sol ond, la padrona sei dell'oceano, calla tua barca fata, fata che mezza luna, la tua barca rilucente, barca e luna crescente, fai semper velo in cielo, e in terra sulla sera, e anche navigare, rifia tutta sulla mare, preghiamo di dare questo bon Melambo, qualunque parler, di qualunque animali. The invocation of the serpent's mother to Diana, 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 Queen of all enchantresses, and of the dark night, and of all nature, of the stars and of the moon, and of all fate or fortune. Thou who rulest the tide, who shinest by night on the sea, casting light upon the waters, thou who art mistress of the ocean, in thy boat made like a crescent moonbar, sea brightly gleaming, ever smiling high in heaven, sailing too on earth, reflected in the ocean, on its water. We implore thee, give this sleeper, give unto this good Melambo, the great gift of understanding. What all creatures say while talking. This legend contains much that is very curious. Among other things, an invocation to the fire fly, one to Mephisha, the goddess of malaria, and 2 long poetic prophecy relative to the hero. It is evidently full of old Latin mythologic lore, of a very marked character. The whole of it may be found in a forthcoming work by the writer of this book, entitled, The Unpublished Legends of Virgil. London, Eliot Stock. Chapter, Diana as giving beauty and restoring strength. Diana has the power to do all things, to give glory to the lowly, wealth to the poor, joy to the afflicted, and beauty to the ugly. Be not in grief if you are her follower, though you may be in prison and in darkness, she will bring light. Many there are whom she humbles that they may rise higher. Once in Monterani, there was a young man named Johnny who was so ugly that whenever a stranger passed through the town, they were shown Johnny as one of the town's curiosities. Despite his hideous appearance, Johnny was rich, though not of noble lineage, and he had confidence that he would one day wed a beautiful young lady of rank. One day, a beautiful blonde young lady of high status came to live in Monterani. Johnny, with his usual boldness, made advances toward her, but received a firm no in reply, as was often the case. However, this time, Johnny was unusually fascinated by the young lady. He became obsessed, spending day and night near her house, desperately seeking an opportunity to seize her or win her by some desperate trick. But Gianni's plans were thwarted by a mysterious cat that was always by the young lady's side. This cat, which seemed to possess more than human intelligence, always detected Gianni's presence and raised the alarm with a terrible noise. The cat's appearance was unearthly, and its large green eyes shone like torches, making even the bravest men shudder in fear. One evening, Johnny convinced himself that it was foolish to be afraid of a mere cat. He decided to make his move. He grabbed a ladder, carried it to the young lady's window, and prepared to climb. But as he stood at the foot of the ladder, an old woman appeared by his side. She begged him not to pursue his intentions. "Johnny," she said, "you know well that the lady will never have you. You are a terror to her. Go home and look in a mirror, and you will see that you appear as mortal sin in human form." In a fit of rage, Johnny replied, "I will have my way and my will, old witch. If I must kill you and the girl to do it, so be it." With that, he rushed up the ladder. But before he could reach the window, he found himself unable to move, as if he had been turned to wood or stone. Overcome with shame, Johnny realized that soon the whole town would witness his defeat. Desperate, he called out to the old woman. "Oh, old one! You meant me more kindly than I realized. Pardon me, I beg you, and rescue me from this trouble. And if you are a witch, as I suspect, and if becoming a wizard can free me from my trials, then I beg you to teach me the ways of your kind. Perhaps then I may be worthy of the young lady." At that moment, Johnny saw the old woman transform into a flash of light, like a lantern glowing in the dark. The light touched him, and he was lifted away from the ladder. The light was the cat, who had been the witch all along. She said to him, "You will soon embark on a long journey. Along the way, you will find a wretched, worn-out horse. When you see it, you must say, 'Fata Diana! Fata Diana! Fata Diana! I beg of you to bring a bit of good to this poor beast.'" Aradia, or the Gospel of the Witches. Author, Charles Godfrey Leland. Language, English. Genre, folklore, witchcraft. Published, 1899, David Nutt. Publication place, United Kingdom. Overview. Aradia, or the Gospel of the Witches is a book by Charles Godfrey Leland, published in 1899. It contains what Leland believed to be the religious text of a group of pagan witches in Tuscany, Italy, documenting their beliefs and rituals. The book includes translations from an Italian manuscript, the Vangelo, which Leland received from his informant, Madalena. The book became influential in the development of contemporary pagan religion, particularly Wicca. Contents. The book consists of 15 chapters detailing the origins, beliefs, rituals, and spells of an Italian pagan witchcraft tradition. The key figure is the goddess Aradia, who was sent to Earth to teach witchcraft to peasants oppressed by feudal lords and the Roman Catholic Church. Origins. Leland claimed that he received the Vangelo manuscript from Madalena, a woman he met in 1886 who provided much of the folklore material for his research. The manuscript took 11 years to acquire and was written in Madalena's handwriting. Leland believed it to be an authentic document of ancient witchcraft traditions. Themes. The text contains spells, blessings, and rituals, alongside myths that blend influences from Roman religion and Christianity. Major characters include Diana, the Roman goddess, Lucifer, and Cain, among others. Aradia teaches witchcraft as a form of rebellion against social and religious oppression. Structure. The first 10 chapters are presented as Leland's translation of the Vangelo. The rest includes his commentary and additional folklore. The book has been subject to much scholarly debate regarding its authenticity, with some arguing that Leland may have fabricated or altered parts of the manuscript. Influence on Wicca and Strigeria. Aradia played a crucial role in the development of Wicca, as it was one of the earliest texts to suggest the survival of ancient witchcraft practices. Its influence can be seen in Wiccan liturgy, particularly in the Charge of the Goddess. Some neopagans, however, have expressed discomfort with certain elements, such as the inclusion of Lucifer as a figure. Controversy. The authenticity of Leland's Vangelo has been questioned by scholars. Some argue that the manuscript was a hoax, while others believe it represents a genuine, though isolated, tradition. Regardless, the book remains an important work in the history of modern witchcraft. Influence on culture. Aradia inspired works of classical music, notably A Witch Mass by Norwegian composer Martin Romberg, which premiered in 2012. The text continues to be a subject of academic interest and spiritual practice.